Hi there, thanks for joining me today. My name's Jo and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the UK. I'm showing a card with you today using the Whimsical Trees and Christmas Trees dies. These are part of the Whimsy and Wonder bundle suite that we have in the catalogue at the current time. This is a really lovely set and it's got a lot of beautiful colours running through it. But I'm using it in a slightly different way today, but it's a quick, fun little card that I think you're going to like. So let's see what we need. So the first thing we need is a card base, and I'm using a thick basic white, and this is 21 centimeters by 14.85, which is scored at 10.5 to give us our card base. So this is a standard C6 card. I'm then using another piece of thick basic white, and this one measures just slightly smaller. So this is 14.35 by 10 centimeters across. So it just gives us that tiny little border around onto our base card. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to be using our trimmer. Now our trimmer is not only great for cutting, for scoring, but also it can be used as a bit of a tool for giving us some nice embossed sort of effects. So I'm just going to do some simple lines on here today, but I think it will just sort of show how we can use these products slightly differently. So I'm first of all going to start on this short edge here, and I'm going to score first of all at 1.5 centimeters. I then want to add a few more score lines, so I'm going to do it at every half centimetre, so at 2, 2.5, 3 and 3.5. Okay, so the side I want to show is actually what's on the reverse. Okay, so you have to bear this in mind when you're actually embossing, because you need to put the lines on the opposite side to what you want them to appear. I hope that makes sense. So I want some more score lines that are going to appear on this side. So I'm going to start embossing here at 1.5 centimeters. So this is on my left hand side, but it will appear on my right hand side. And again, I'm going to score at 0.5 centimeter increments, and I want 5 lines in total. Just make sure it's all nicely lined up, because they will show obviously when they're on the front. Okay, so just turned that over, so now you can see I've got these lovely score lines coming through, and if you've used the other side of your card and you've got this little ridge where you've cut it, just run your finger now just along the edges, and that gets rid of that. So there we go, so that is our base. So this is going to sit on our card. It's just adding a tiny little bit of interest, but without creating too much. We're not wanting to emboss it all over like you would have an embossing folder. So it's just something a little bit sort of different for that. So the next thing I've done is I've taken the layering circles dies, and I have cut 4 circles from, again, thick basic white. And in order to get them all identical, I actually tape my dies together when I'm cutting, so I can know that every single one that comes out is going to be identical. And I've used the 2 largest dies from the layering circles. Okay, and the first thing I want to do is actually to glue these together. Now obviously this is a little bit fiddly because they're quite narrow, but if you just do a few little dots of glue the whole way around, and then just hold it in place and just work them together so that you know that they're stuck nice. So what we're creating here is, rather than using dimensionals to actually add some height, we're actually using layers of cardstock. Now when you're doing something like this with a circle, because they're so narrow, it's actually a really good way to get that height. You trouble to get dimensionals under there. And we do obviously have our foam sheets, but I don't know that I'd want to use them for this, for the sheer waste obviously that would come out. So again, just put them together Okay, so I'm quite happy that they are now together. And I'm just going to pop them to one side. So can you see it just gives us that height that we might get with a dimensional, but with circles. And it, because the height is the same and you get this level edge, it's quite a nice sort of effect. So I'm going to put that to one side. And then what I want to do is to take one of the circles that came out of the middle when I cut these. So this is just one of those circles. And I want to add some ink to this. So what I'm looking to create is a bit of a night sky. So I'm using Misty Moonlight, goodness me. And I just want to add this all over. Now this will pick up every little mark on this card where it's been through my cutting machine and my plates are slightly marked. But don't worry too much because we are going to cover the vast majority of it. Now you could, if you wanted to, use Misty Moonlight cardstock and not worry about the actual blending, but I like to do this because it gives it a more natural effect. If you used cardstock, actually if I bring a piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock in, you can see it's quite dense, and I want this to be a little bit more mottled, I think is the expression. So just add as much or as little as you want. I want it to be quite striking, so I do want to add a reasonable amount. And you could of course do this in any other colour because we have a little bit of artistic license. So if you wanted to create, for example, we have a lot of Blushing Bride running through this suite, so you could do a pink background for a little bit of a different effect. But I want this one to be quite striking, so I'm going in quite a lot with my Misty Moonlight. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Night of Navy. So this is just that dark navy blue. And I want to work this one just on the edges. I don't want to go right into the centre with this one. It's just adding that additional interest. You see these marks are beginning to disappear, and we're going to have some trees on here shortly, so they will disappear entirely. Okay, and you can work this as much or as little as you want. I like it quite dark. I think it's quite striking. So just add as much or as little as you want to. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that now. So it's got that slightly lighter middle, but it's going to be, you know, quite dark. So I'm just going to wipe up my mess quickly. So now what I want to do is to create my trees. Now I've already cut these from the Christmas tree dies, and there's these cute little trees. And I'm just adding 3 of them. There's 2 sizes, 1 large and 2 small. So I just want to arrange them so that they just fall off the edge here. So I'm going to stick those in place. You choose where you pop them. It doesn't really matter. Just going to bring some more glue down that stem because I'm going to be using a little bit more of it. Okay, so that's my trees cut in place. Stuck in place, she says, as she moves one. Just flicked that with my finger, it hadn't quite stuck. There we go. So now that I've done that, I'm just going to trim the ends of my trees. And also from the same dies, I've cut these little stars. So there's some really lovely little elements that you can use in this set, just to create a really simple sort of card, really. So I want to glue these quite randomly. So I'm going to just pop, I've got 5 of them, and I'm going to use all 5. So I've just popped some little blocks of glue. I'm just going to pop those on top. Okay, so that's my little circle coming together. The next thing I want to do is to add some little specks of some little stars, and we're going to use our stamping ink. You've seen me use this numerous times, I'm sure. This is the ink to ink our craft white ink pads, and I'm just putting a tiny little blob onto my desk, and I now just need a little paintbrush just to water this down a little bit. I don't want to make it too runny, but I do want it to be so that I can flick it. So I'm just going to take the end of my paintbrush where I've just added this and just take your time and just put as much or as little as you want on. I don't want too much, but I do want a mixture of sort of bigger blobs, little blobs, just so it looks like a night sky. Okay, so now I need to be very careful of this. Normally, if I was doing this not on camera, I would pop it to one side and let it dry. It's not going to have long, but I am just popping it over out of the way for a moment. Just quickly wipe down my desk again. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is my little greeting. So I'm using a piece of Misty Moonlight cardstock, and I'm going to be using the Versamark ink pad and also the stamp from this lovely stamp set, Whimsical Trees. And I'm going to be using this one here, May the love of the season warm your heart, warm your home and fill your heart. I think that's a really lovely sentiment. So I've got that here. And I'm going to heat emboss this with white embossing powder. Okay, so just give that other piece a moment just to dry off a bit more. I'm going to fussy cut this out. You don't have to be too precise when you're fussy cutting these, because the idea is you want it to be sort of a bit wiggly around the edges. So just, I move my card, not my scissors, and allow it just to follow the contours of the letters with a little border. I want a border on there so that I can see the text properly. If you go too close, then you kind of lose the impact of it. Okay, so that is my greeting. So now what I want to do is to actually put my card together. So the first thing I want to do is to stick down this white piece here that we did our embossing on. Now you could do it with dimensionals if you wanted to. but I'm just going to stick mine flat because I've got quite a bit dimensional ready with my circles. Okay, so that's now stuck in place. Now I've got to be very, very careful as I lift my trees. As I say, normally I would allow this a little bit of time to dry, but I'm going to just stick it down the bottom here, leaving a bit of a gap because I need to allow space for my circle to go. And when I'm happy where it is, just going to use the elements on there just to see. I've picked up a little bit of ink on there, but hopefully we'll be able to hide that in a moment. I'm then going to take my circles and glue those in place. Unfortunately, I'm having a few issues with my phone, and I didn't realise that it had actually cut off mid-recording there. So as I'd nearly finished the actual card itself, I'm just going to talk you through the last little bits that I did. So you saw me at the end there, I was just sticking this circle into place. So that is now all stuck down. I then heat embossed my greeting, which is taken from the Whimsical Trees stamp set. So it's this little greeting here. And I've heat embossed it in white embossing powder onto Misty Moonlight cardstock. I then just fussy cut that. I think you saw me do that sort of at the before we put the circle on. So that's that part now. And all I did was added a little bit of dimensional to either end of my greeting here. And then this is stuck directly onto the circle. So it gives you that nice flat sort of look to it. I then just tied this little bow with our little white twine and then added 3 little gems on to finish the card. So I hope you like that today. I'm very sorry it cut out mid-recording, but I think we'd got most of the elements done, so that was good. I didn't want to have to record it again. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you again next week. Take care. Bye.